and welcome to the Momversation Club. I'm Claire Strong.
And I'm Christina Struckmeyer. We're two moms just like you, navigating the nitty-grittiness of motherhood and taking you along with us as we talk about the topics that nobody's talking about.
So today we're going to talk about acknowledging and accepting the season of motherhood that you're in and finding the joy within it.
And now a quick break in the Momversation to bring you a word from today's sponsor. If you're wondering what to do with your kiddos in San Diego, we have to tell you about this amazing guide we found. San Diego's Out and About with Kids.
Yes, it's literally a lifesaver. Whether you're a local San Diegan or visiting, it's packed with the very best family-friendly spots all over San Diego County. And the best part? It's created by local parents like us.
We're talking ice cream spots, restaurants, playgrounds, and local tips from parents who have actually been there. It even highlights accessible spots for families with special needs, which we love.
So if you want to make the most of San Diego with your kids, this is a must-have. Seriously, this is a destination game changer. Click the link in our show notes or visit sandiegofamily.com to plan your next family adventure. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Claire. How are you?
I'm good. And just for the record, I'm not going to a funeral.
So for those who can't see us.
Shall I explain? Okay, here's the deal. I don't own anything that's black, like hardly anything that's black. And so today I thought I would put on a black blouse. And Christina was like, whoa, are
I've
you
never
sure?
seen you in black. Are you okay?
I know, I am okay. I'm not in,
You're not in mourning?
I'm not mourning anything. I'm just rotating my wardrobe. So you probably won't see me in a lot of black from here on in. But yeah, it was simply a case of what haven't I worn for the podcast?
I
That's
feel
what I'll do today.
Maybe we are melding into the same person because I wear black all the time and you're bringing black in. And on my side, I've got to share with you something that I have been enjoying on TikTok that is fully Claire, like all over it, okay? So
Right.
I don't know where my algorithm, maybe I'm talking to you too much and my phone hears me, but I have been linked into this user called the Queen of Afternoon Tea.
Oh my
And
God.
what she does, and I don't know, do I drink tea? No. Do I go to tea? No. But do I watch every single thing she puts out? 100%. She is this gal, like an older lady who's from your neck of the woods, who goes to places in the US that have high tea, and she records her experience and rates them on a star from 1 to 5.
God. I need to do this because I'll tell you, there's nothing worse from an American tea shop owner's point of view when I walk through the door. Because if it's not, and I'm serious, if it's not English owned, I'm like, this is BS. Like, how on earth can this be authentic? And the best bit was, I went into this really fancy tea room in Carmel. In Northern California. Is that classed as Northern California?
I don't know, but go on.
Central Coast. Anyhow, went into this really fancy tea shop, and there were all these American women there taking selfies and obviously, recording the whole thing for Insta, and they were delighted with everything. I came in, looked at the menu. The first thing that caught my eye, there's a dish called Welsh rarebit, and it's basically a fancy cheese on toast, or grilled cheese, as you'd say here.
Okay.
And then they were describing where these dishes were native to. Now, the clue is in the name. It's called Welsh rarebit because it's from Wales. And they said, this English delight. And as soon as I was like, what? This is ridiculous. This dish is from Wales. They don't even know their geography. So from there on in, it was just a disaster.
You're like, I'm not even gonna hear you out.
I need to do what that lady's doing that you follow. That would be
it's so nice job. Because I have found myself getting really they did not give you enough clotted cream. This is ridiculous. You should leave.
Oh my God, we need to get her on this show.
She's like, why do Americans bring steamed milk? I want regular milk. Don't be weird.
Don't get me started on that. And the other thing is they go from one extreme to the other. They bring you hot milk for your tea, which is just ridiculous. Or they don't bring you any milk at all, and I have to ask for it. I mean, it's the whole thing. Just this is a totally different show, don't get me started on that.
I feel as if you and I should go to tea, and record
Mm-hmm.
it and have ourselves a little, we'll tag her. We'll tag her and we'll talk about it. But it's been giving me a lot of joy just because I'm like, man, let's focus on her problems about her clotted cream versus like my day-to-day situation that I've got going on, which
Oh,
leads into
yes.
today's topic.
Yes. Yes, it does. And no, it's not about clotted cream and afternoon tea, but it is about embracing and enjoying the season of motherhood that you're in right now.
Yes, yes. So this topic came up because Claire and I were chit-chatting just about our different spaces of motherhood that we're in right now.
Hmm.
We have so many things that we want to do, and one of us is in one season, the other one's in another season. They each have their own unique stuff, as far as like joy
Challenges.
spots and
Hmm.
struggles, but they're not the same. And
Mm.
it's really hard sometimes to be in your season of motherhood and want so badly to match up with other moms and just be like, oh man, that's not my lane right now. Like, I can't do that. Do you ever feel that way, Claire, where you look at other moms and you go, damn it, if only?
Oh, all the time. I'd say this is one of my worst characteristics. My husband will totally agree with me on this one. I compare myself to people all the time. So, whether it's another mum or whether it's someone, a professional that may be doing more than I am, I do have a very bad habit of looking at people on whether it's Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. And, there are these women and they look like they're running their own business and they're on the board of this and they have like 16 kids and yet they're able to, they're these rhinos that are putting out all these inspirational messages every day. And I'm struggling to get through, a normal day. And I don't own my own, well, I say I don't own my own company.
Well,
This is,
we're an
this is our
LLC.
business.
We have a
We are
business.
an LLC. But you know what I mean? I'm not, or these high flying women that have these VP positions with these huge international
Totally.
companies
Like the
and
CEO, bad bitches.
yeah, and it's like, oh my God. And so I have a really, really bad habit, and there's nothing good comes out of it, frankly, of comparing myself to people like that. I would like to say that I see them as inspiration and I take that from these women, and I kind of do. But then I can't help but think, oh my God, like my mountain is so high. I've got so much further to climb to be anywhere near as successful as these women. So that's my very unhealthy and unhelpful habit that I have.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, but I think we kind of all do that. I think we look
Mm,
at moms, whether it be at our, school drop off,
yeah.
PTO, or in the interwebs and, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you get your information. And we compare ourselves, but we don't know, one, what season of motherhood they're in, two, what their situation day to day is. Do they have help? Do they have a chef? Do they have
Mhm.
extra things here? We don't know any of that stuff. We're just seeing a part of their life. And for me, they always say comparison is the thief of joy, but I compare myself to my old self pretty often. And that's where I
Mm,
find the most disappointment sometimes. I feel like I'm really good about not looking at other moms because I'm like, you never know her story. Like I'm very
mhm.
I'm very frilly
Yeah,
about it. Like, oh, yeah, everybody has their own lives.
and
But
it's true,
I
and
don't
yeah.
give myself the same grace when I'm looking back at my motherhood from like 2 years ago, or how I was when Stella was 3 or 4, and I go back to that time and I'm like, get it together, Christina. Like, why are you not good enough? Like, why aren't you doing things that you were doing 2 years ago? And I have to really give myself a lot of reality checks of like, this is different than then.
Mm,
One of the biggest things that comes up is 3 4 years ago, I was in a situation where I was running a very successful, high performing network marketing business. And my body was at this space of that I'd never been in. I was like in the smallest thing of clothes, and I was very outgoing, and I went to like bars a lot and had friend dinner outs and things like that. And now it is a struggle to shower and put on clothing that doesn't have stuff on it. And so I'm like, man, what the hell? Like your body isn't what it used to be. You're not having fun time like you used to have. You're not even taking care of yourself the way like I beat myself up constantly about my motherhood from maybe 4 years ago versus now. Do you ever, like, because you said you compare yourself to other moms, do you ever look at your motherhood differently like that?
Yeah, I do that too. I mean, I'm mainly, looking at the present and what other people are doing around me. That's my kind of vice. But I do sometimes look back and I'll think, oh, even 10 years ago, and, I was doing all of this and I was studying for a master's degree and I was working at the BBC as a news anchor and I had two kids and I was a single mum and, I was in great shape and and it's like, yes, but, you know, and I sometimes think I had more energy back then. Well, yeah, but like we've just been discussing, things change. I in some ways thought I had the weight of the world on my shoulders then, but now looking at today, I feel that, actually it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And
Well,
today I've actually got quite a lot more worries than I had back then. And so yeah, I get that. I really do get
yeah.
that. I think it's just, but it's hard, Christina. Let's be truthful here. It is really hard to, when you're in the moment that you're in, it's hard to see all the positives. It's hard to see,
Yeah.
oh, actually, I've come so far in this area, because I don't know whether it's human
Yes.
nature or whether it's just, us as moms, but we do tend to, even the most positive of us, and I am a half glass full person. I am naturally, very resilient and I bounce back from crises and negative situations. That said, it is very easy to think about what's gone wrong in your day and what you're not doing right. Oh God, I let that slip. I haven't done that. I'm going to be late to this. It's overwhelming. And so, yes, we absolutely do need to embrace motherhood and the season that we're in. But, let's not sugarcoat it. For a lot of us, when we're in that season, as we're talking to each other today, there are lots of heavy parts to it too, aren't there?
Yeah, I think it's hard because at the same time, and I think we're very aware of it too as mothers,
Hmm.
we know we're going to miss this. Like, we know that when we go 20 years down the line, we're going to wish we could zoom back to this time, but not
Yeah,
every moment would we rewind back to, because
that's
there's
true.
sometimes where it's like, I'm not going to miss this,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
specific thing right here.
yeah.
But it's hard to ground yourself when you're in those moments because it can feel like whatever failure is happening that day will always happen. And this is how you
Mm,
are right now and it'll be forever. Like, it feels so heavy. And the only thing I can compare it to is like when I was in high school and everything felt so huge. Everything felt like such a
mm,
big deal. And
mhm.
then you get to the real world and you're like, I don't care who likes me. I don't care
Yeah,
if that boy wants to talk to me or not. Like, I don't care
yeah.
about any of that anymore because I've grown past that. And I feel like I'm going to look at motherhood and have that same vibe when I'm older. I'm going to be like, man, I wish I would have just been more chill.
Yeah. So I do this quite a lot. In fact, I dream about there's this one stage that the girls were at. I think they would have been 5 and 7, I want to say, or four, no, 4 and 6, I think. And I took them glamping on my own in the UK before we moved out here. And I dream about that glamping trip that we took. And, we're inside this nice little tent and I've got Eva next to me in bed and Sophia's in the bunk bed. And I remember that, and do you know what the funny thing is? I generally don't do a good job of savoring the moment, and I need to do a better job of that. But I distinctly remember laying in that bed with Eva next to me. She would have been about 4, and then Sophia in the bunk bed. And I remember thinking, this is a moment that I'm going to look back on in years to come. And I did savor that moment, and I dream about that. I actually have dreams, of very vivid dreams about that time. And so, yeah, I often think, oh my God, that was such a great time back then, even though in that moment I probably wasn't thinking those things.
Yeah, like on the day to day during the age 4 to 6
Yeah,
space with the girls, like it might
yeah,
not
it
have
was
been
hard.
every day was like, oh, a cherished spot.
No, it was,
Like,
Eva wouldn't put her tights on to go to school. So, I'd have like a massive issue with her every single morning. I'd actually dread doing the school drop off because Eva was fixated on the seam on her tights or whatever.
ugh,
And then, so that was really my reality. But
yeah,
looking
yeah.
back, it's like, oh my God. So, okay. So,
Yeah, no,
what I want to know is then,
I think that also, like, just to kind of put some perspective on my side for that,
Mhm.
I believe that also is the reason why people have more babies than they think that they should have. because
Oh,
as moms, I feel
point.
like we go back and we glamorize like the newborn days because we see the pictures and we remember this really happy moments. And we like
Yeah.
have amnesia about the reality of what it was like to have a newborn and all of the other things that come with that because it's nuanced. Every season of motherhood has its joy and has its moments where there are some challenges. And when we look back on it, we don't look at the challenges. We look at just the joy.
Hmm.
And so my husband and I were having a real reality about that because we were looking at pictures of Rennie and we go, oh my God, she's so cute. Like, why is Facebook Memories doing this to us? And I'm like, well, he's like, absolutely not. Like, do not. Do not come
That's
at me. We've
funny.
had this conversation at nauseum. Like, we are in agreement, hold strong. And I'm like, I think it's not that I want another kid. It's that I want to rewind back and hold her with the
Mm.
perspective I have now
Mm-hmm.
and the peace I have now that everything's okay and be able to go back to that moment and just enjoy it. Because I don't think
Yeah.
I had that at that time. I enjoyed it, but not at the level I would now if I were to zoom back.
Okay, so what I want to know is then what can we do to really embrace and enjoy the season of motherhood that we're in? Because all these seasons are very fleeting. You get
They
your sea
are.
legs and you think you've just about got on top of something, then everything changes. And this keeps happening even as your kids get older. My
Yeah.
girls are teenagers now. It happens all the time. They're changing all the time. And so a season that I thought was going to be, this was going to be my life for a good amount of time, then you get upended and you have to learn something new. So
Oh my God. So
how do
true.
we go about, just being present and trying to enjoy it as well? Because finding those like moments of joy that we can just hold on to and feel kind of good in ourselves about, how do we do that?
Yeah, I think as moms, like we have this way of going, well, when things get easier, like when things get easier,
Yeah.
when life isn't as crazy, we will, do this or do that, or I'll meet up with you
Mm.
for coffee when life settles down. The reality is, as a motherhood, it never settles down. Like this is just
Mhm.
one ongoing, not settled down. And then there's even more stuff that comes when they're older and out of the house, I'm sure. I'm not there
Oh
yet, but I'm
yeah,
sure.
I'm sure
Um,
too.
I think it's about knowing what this time is and what it isn't. And that's what's been helping me. This
Hmm.
is not the time for me to be able to go to coffee with my friend in the middle of the day and have a very leisurely chat and like go shopping and boutiquing and like having a liaison day. Like that's not the season. Um, Identifying what is and isn't this season. So there's a lot of things that are off the table. This is probably not the season for a date night every Friday. This is probably not the season where I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. This is probably, like onward and onward. But
Yeah.
there is the season for, and thinking this is the season where mommy kisses your arm and makes it feel better. And that's all they need to feel better is like a kiss from mommy. Like that's
Hmm.
this season. That's not going to be the season in 10 years. Like they're going to
Hmm.
have much bigger problems that mommy's kisses can't solve.
Sure.
This is the season where I am the coolest thing that ever existed. Everybody thinks I'm like the best and I have hype men all over. Um, like
I remember those days.
that's the season. It's a season of park days and play dates and story times and creating family traditions that the kids are really excited about. The kids really want to go and do like the Christmas lights, the pumpkin patches, and St. Patrick's Day leprechauns. And, you got to soak in like what it is for and then be okay with leaving some stuff at the table because it's just this way for now, not forever. And that's double edged. It's just this way for now, not forever is good in those hard moments where you can go, well,
Mhm.
she's not going to shit her pants forever. Like that's eventually going to
Oh,
stop
that's
happening,
amazing.
right? Right?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it does. That's one thing
Right.
I can assure you.
But but also like it's not going to be like this forever, meaning like she's not always going to want to curl up on my body and like want to put her head on my shoulder. Eventually they will get too big to do stuff like that. So it's like it helps you in those hard moments, but it also helps ground you in the joy too, where you can go,
Mhm.
maybe I'm not going to miss the shitty pants situation or the tantrums or the time where they threw themselves on the Target floor. But I probably will miss those other things that I just described. So internally, like just making a list of like, these are the good things that are happening right
Yeah.
now. And then, for the shitty stuff, being like, okay, well, that's on pause. It's not forever. It's just not
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah, I think that's great perspective because, I think basically what you're saying is, embrace and soak in all the good stuff and the stuff that's frustrating you that are maybe dissatisfiers. That's not going to be forever. You are going to get a chance to maybe correct those areas or improve on those areas as, your motherhood evolves. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously the hearts change, like
Mhm.
you don't have children that throw themselves on the Target floor or have accidents in their pants. Like you have other hard things. You've described some situations where I'm like, well, geez, I don't know what I'd do in that.
Yeah.
Shit. Hopefully I learn some things before I get there. But yeah, you have hard moments in every season. But much like my season right now, where I'm looking at toddlerhood and I'm going, these are the hard, these are the good, you have hard and good in your current season. I mean, when I start telling you about my season and the boo-boos and the park days and all this stuff, and then all the hard, the shitty pants and the tantrums, what comes to mind for you in your current mom season? Like, what
Well,
are
I
the good
still
and
have the
bad?
tantrums. I still have the tantrums. So just to put it out there, you get teenage tantrums. So they're the same, just different. So yeah, I would say because I have two girls as well, the emotional draining toll that teenage girls can take can have on a mum's mental health. I'd say that's honestly, if I'm thinking like as a whole about my stage in motherhood right now, it can be emotionally draining because they're going through big emotions. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of we've had bullying in the mix, if anxiety. There's a lot. I do think that teenagers, especially teenage girls, are juggling a lot more than we did back in the day, mainly because of social media, honestly. So I feel that I'm a constant therapist, that I am, I have to brace myself because generally the conversation is something, that I need to help them with. It's something heavy. And
Yeah.
so I'd say the dissatisfier, if I can phrase it like that, or the thing that's the hardest about my season of motherhood is that I am a 24/7 therapist. And bearing in mind, I have my own stuff going on too. I mean, I need a therapist.
Yeah. But you have like this thing where it sounds like you've got your brain running, but
Yeah.
alongside you've got Eva and Sophia and like what their needs are mentally. And so it's like an overload situation.
So, oh, totally. I feel that's exactly how I feel. I feel overloaded and overwhelmed emotionally, quite often actually. And I could be having, a bad day myself, but then the second I pick them up from school, then they're unloading on me. And I've got to resist
Mm,
the urge not to kind of like, like sigh and roll my eyes because I actually don't think what they're telling me is necessarily as big a deal as, what I think it is. And so, yeah, so I think you definitely turn into therapist when
the
you enter the
sounding board.
teenage years, sounding board. But the flip side of that, I am lucky. My girls, they are kind of still my hype men as well. They tell me all the time how much they love me. For example, my daughter, my eldest, this morning, let me see if I can find the text. She sent me a really sweet text when she got to
Oh,
school, and it was something "Hi, mummy, you're my hero." I was like, "Oh, what the
oh
heck
my
did I do to
God.
deserve that?" But I'll take it. I never used to say that to my mum, and so
Oh,
yeah, so the things that I am really enjoying about this season of motherhood, so the teenage years, I get to do things with them. So we went to see Pink fairly recently, at Petco Park in San Diego. We had a great time. The three of us are singing the songs, and so I feel like I do have like a couple of nice little friends as well, and so that's nice. So I can do more with them. We
yeah.
can do, we can participate in more things together. And so and actually, yeah, I mean, in some ways they're pretty helpful as well. So, they will do things like if I need them to vacuum, they'll do it. They'll take the dogs out for me. And so there are positives too. It isn't all down to me on a practical level anymore, but I do feel I've shifted into this therapist role too. So,
Sure.
Yes, but I do try and, because then I'm projecting out, and it's like, oh my God, well, we'll be entering the stage where they start going off to university or whatever, and they're not in the home, and I'm not looking forward to that stage.
Yeah.
I know, again, when that season approaches, I'm going to have to embrace that. But right now, I look at that, and it's kind of, I'm not really looking forward to that. I'm sure all the moms listening to this are like, oh my God, I cannot wait for my kids to leave for university. But I think because I've been a single parent for so many years as well, I think that bond is slightly different, in my opinion, to that of, kids who were brought up in a two-parent household, because that single parent is everything to those kids or that child. So I
Yeah.
feel that we're closer in some ways than perhaps I was with my mom, and not because I didn't get on with my mom, or not because my mom wasn't a great mom, she was, but because it has been, I sometimes refer to us as the Three Musketeers. It's been the three of us.
Yeah.
And so I'm, projecting out, I'm not looking forward to them not being around, because it's always been the three of us.
Yeah.
And even though I'm married, I'm remarried, and so there is another parent figure in the house, it's just not the same for them with my husband. He could never fill my role. And so I guess I feel that our relationship, the girls and I's relationship, is more intense than maybe it would be if we had a traditional family setup.
And now a quick break in the Momversation to bring you a word from today's sponsor.
The holidays are coming, and if you have a mama on your list, we can't recommend today's sponsor, Neems Jeans, enough.
Neems is a women-owned business offering custom denim jeans made precisely to your unique body measurements and delivered straight to your door.
And with the Neems box, you can gift the magic of custom-made jeans to your loved one without having to know their size or jean style preferences. Easier for you, personalized to them. It even comes in a cute box for wrapping.
Neems Jeans gives you the perfect fit every time, guaranteed, and offers inclusive sizing for everybody, which we love to see.
Visit neemsjeans.com and use code MOMVERSATION15 at checkout for 15% off your order. That's NEEMS jeans.com and code MOMVERSATION15 for a special savings. And I think also adding to your kind of projecting into the future and kind of grieving this moment, even though it hasn't passed,
Yeah.
is the stuff that you're talking about, where it is the season for them to talk to you about their feelings. It is the season for you to go be friends with them and go do fun things together. That stuff will not probably be present for at least a good 5-6 years while they're finding themselves. They may go to others, like their own therapist that they pay, or
Yeah.
a friend for their day-to-day feelings. And they may have a situation where they have a spouse or something. Like they grow up and they don't need you in the same way anymore. And then hopefully, if you've created a good bond, like they circle back, and then your grandma, or you're, having an adult relationship with your adult child, which is different. And you still can go on trips and go see Pink and do those fun things. So it's hard. Motherhood is grieving moments as they're happening. Like I'll be holding my daughter and be like, I'm sad that this is happening. Like right now, her thing is when you open the door to say hi to her in the morning, she goes, "Oh, hi, Mom." She like, "Oh, fancy seeing you here." She goes, "Oh,
That's
hi,
so
Mommy."
funny.
And and she goes, "I'm awake now." And I go, "Yeah, I see that you're awake. Like, let's get up." And I am gonna miss that little voice of like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry on this message. I'm gonna cry on this because I can feel it. I can be like, I'm gonna miss this. But at the same time, if you could shop shitting your pants, that'd be great. you know?
So I remember, so when I was breastfeeding Eva, my youngest, my marriage wasn't very good at the time. So I definitely realized in that moment that she was probably going to be my last child, and she
Yeah.
was. And so even though at the time it was so frustrating because she wouldn't take a pacifier, or a dummy as we call them in England. So she wouldn't take a pacifier. and she wouldn't take a bottle. So literally I was the food and the pacifier. So I couldn't leave her with anyone. And this went on for a good 6 months.
Oh my God,
And
Claire.
I remember it was ridiculous. I remember thinking, oh my God, this is exhausting. Like I cannot leave. I literally can't leave this baby, because even if I leave her for an hour, if she's unsettled, there isn't one person in this world that can settle her, because I'm everything to her right now. But then in the same breath, I remember thinking, oh, you've got to cherish this, because she probably is going to be your last. And actually, you really quite enjoy breastfeeding, and you've been lucky enough that, your baby's responded well, and you both haven't had any crazy issues with breastfeeding. You've been able to do that. And lots of women would love to breastfeed, but can't for whatever reason. So just enjoy it and be grateful. So I did remember to make a mental note during those pretty taxing 6 months of me not being able to leave either, that that was actually pretty special too, because I was unlikely to be able to repeat that with another child.
Yeah. Oh, I think that helps too, having more than one child, for me too. Like where it's like, right now we're in the toddlerhood days, and I often feel like, oh God, Christina, you should be dressing sexier for your husband, or you should be, going and making more friends and being outside more. And you've been watching Bluey for too long, and just like, we
Oh.
need to get outside. And I go back to, what was I like when Stella was 2 or 3? And I go, oh man, you were just like this. You had to figure things out, and life was kind of more challenging. And then she got to be a preschooler, and all this time appeared, and you started
Yes.
dressing a little bit nicer, and you started brushing your hair more, and you started like doing things and looking at your career differently. And there were these other things that came in, because this is just how you are when you're a toddler mom. Like you've got to
Yeah,
give
I
yourself
feel.
grace.
Yeah, and during those stages, so the baby and toddler stages, I do feel like you're in survival mode a lot of time as well, because it's physically demanding of you, because they are still so young that they do need you. And even when they get to toddlers and they can walk themselves, that presents its own set of problems, because then are they running off? And I just
Yeah,
think it is
don't run
so.
away.
It's demanding in a physical sense as well as a mental sense when they are that young. So
Yeah.
I hear you. That was a challenging time.
Yeah, and then getting back to like the comparison in the beginning of the show,
Mm,
when I get into that space of like, oh God, Christina, why couldn't you be like you were 4 years ago? And that, that's hard, because that's also when I met my husband. And I'm like, I've changed
right.
so much since he's met me. Like, and he's always assuring me, I love you so much. I love you so much at any size, any way, any time. Like, I love you. But it's hard for me, because I'm like, God, I've changed so much as a person in these last 3 to 4 years. I'm almost like I'm, shape shifted a little bit. Like I'm very different than I was. But then I go, okay, well, back then you had a child who was going to school, and you had a
Hmm.
work from home job where you were a single mom. There was no one else in the house. You had all this focus time and free time. You were dating. Like it's different. And that doesn't mean it's bad or good either way. It just means it's different. So you can't compare your circumstances now with what it was then, because not only are you mentally different, you like do not have the same logistics. And a lot of
Mm,
shit has happened in the last 3 to 4 years to me.
hmm.
And it has informed who I am now.
Yeah.
And I think we're just always evolving. Like motherhood, life, work, like personal relationships, it's informing who we're going to be. And it's impossible to be the same as you were 4 years ago. Like you have to abandon that, because you're just meeting the new version of you every few years. If you're doing it right, if you're doing life right, because if you're the same as you were 10 years ago, you got some problems. You should probably look at that.
You're so right. And, I find myself looking back at photos, like you say, from a few years ago, from 4 years ago, from 10 years ago. And in that moment, I'm sure I had dissatisfiers then with the way I looked or with whatever else, because we're never quite satisfied with ourselves, very often. But, I've got to be. I sometimes, and I don't know whether you do this, Christina, when I do look back at older photos, even from a few years ago, I do compare myself now, particularly physically, and then I think about where I was in in relation to other things as well. So where was I in my relationship with my husband? Where was I in my relationship with the girls? What was I doing career-wise? it is. It's just like a reminder of
Yeah.
things are different. And then from a physical aspect, were things, was it better back then? Do I look like that now? It's just, I don't know. Looking back at old photos evokes a lot of different emotions in me. And they can just be from a few years ago. I'm not talking about like old photos
Yeah,
as in when I was 5 years
absolutely.
old. Yeah.
For me, I go, God, I wish I was nicer to myself back then. Like, I
Right.
remember how I felt about myself at that time and
Mm,
how hard I was on myself. And I look back with like kinder eyes than I would have been in that moment. I think it's a problem that is unique to this time in life, like this culture,
mm,
like our time of motherhood. Um, Back when, we had moms that were in the 70s and 80s and, 60s, we didn't have this many pictures. We didn't have these many
mm.
markers. We didn't have this constant look back.
Facebook memories.
I remember, I mean, you laugh, but like, if you were to ask me, how many pictures of you do you have from your childhood? I could name maybe 20, 30, and that's a good mom. She took a lot of pictures. For
Oh, I
most
don't think
people,
I have that many.
for most people,
Yeah.
it's like I think I have a one picture from 1995.
Yeah.
You asked
Yeah.
me about last year. I think I took like 3,000 pictures of my kids. Like shit, man. Like we have so many memories, and it's kind of like it's hindering us sometimes. You
Mm.
want to look back and have them, but also you've got to realize that like that is not typical behavior of moms before us. And so it's informing the way that we do things and maybe being a little bit aware of that. Like, when I notice things like on social media that I'm starting to follow someone and they're making me feel bad about myself, I unfollow them real fast.
So I've actually started unfollowing certain people on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, who make me feel bad about myself. So, if for example, influencers, if they've started to really focus on, I don't know, like weight loss, or then they maybe they're fitness coaches, they're personal trainers, and I, probably liked a video or certainly watched something, and I've thought that was helpful. But then as I start seeing more content from them, they make me feel like, I tell you the biggest one, getting 10,000 steps in a day. I don't know how the hell I'm supposed to do that along with everything else I've got going on. And I'm a pretty
Yeah.
motivated person from an exercise point of view. And so when they're telling me, oh, to get this, to get rid of your mum pooch, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, my God, like, okay, well, it looks to me like you don't work and you don't, I just don't know how you have time to do that. So I'm not going to follow you anymore, because every time I'm looking at your stuff, it's now making me feel like a failure, because I cannot do that in a day. And so it's, yeah, I think giving yourself
Yeah.
grace and being kind to yourself, it's just so important, because my default setting, unfortunately, is to compare myself to other people and see where I'm falling short, instead of seeing what I'm doing well, and not having anxiety about the stuff that maybe I'm not doing the same as another mum or as another woman.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point about the surroundings of like what you're taking in, I do the same thing, Claire. Like I unfollow people. I went through a period where my body was changing that I followed a bunch of mid-size, plus size creators.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was scrolling lately, I noticed a lot of them have recently started Ozempic, and
Oh
they're massively
no.
losing weight and they've shifted their messaging. And it's like it's okay to be like, this worked for me then, and now you've changed and I'm not aligning with what you're putting out, so I'm going to
Yeah.
unfollow. And it's the same thing with like friendships and people you surround yourself with.
Mm,
That's a big tip for me as far as like how to enjoy this season of motherhood is find
mhm.
other moms and women who are in this season with you. Maybe
Yes.
that is online and you look for people that are keeping it real and make you feel good and motivate you in your motherhood. Maybe it's trying to venture out and find other moms that are in your current season, whether that be like through school or through
Mhm.
volunteering, stuff like that. But like it's important because they get it. And then you can also soak in the good stuff too, because if someone's being a negative Nancy all the time, don't hang out with them. Like find the ones that are
Yeah.
creating both like the good conversations and the bad.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great advice. And I do take so much from my friendships with other mums that are in the same season as me because they just get it. They get all the teenage stuff, and it just makes me feel so less alone. And so I cherish those friendships that I have.
Yeah. I think I'd love to end today's episode with just talking about like what I'm doing to create a little bit of grounding, and that is taking care of myself. Alongside the things that we've talked about with giving myself grace and trying to find the good and the bad and the ugly and identifying what is good in this season, I also have kind of must-have minimums for me to feel
Mm,
okay in this current season. Here are the
okay.
things that if nothing else gets done, I don't know if you do this with other things, but like, for instance, with water, I would
Yeah.
love to be like those people that drink a gallon a day. That is not me. But I would love to, my minimum is like if I drink 64 ounces of water, which is like 8 cups a day, and that's my daily minimum, I'm
Wow.
always on my worst days even able to hit that. It's like, here's the
That's good.
minimum bar.
Hmm.
Here's if it's an awesome day and you have so much more ability to drink more water. But even on your bad days, like, here's the minimum. And I
Mm,
do that in my motherhood. Like, on your worst days, what are the things that you have to do for you to feel like a human being and like a person on this day?
mm,
And so creating that for yourself, because everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to be different about what are their must haves. For me, the house being in order brings me a lot of joy. It makes me
mm.
feel like I'm productive. It makes me feel like I'm contributing. It makes me feel a level of peace because if I can look out in my house, I'm not talking about the playroom. We're not going to talk about her. But if we're looking at the rest of the house, if
Mhm.
I can light a candle for the fall
Yes.
and like
Yeah.
have freshly vacuumed carpets, that brings me so much peace. And so that's a must have minimum for me is to have at least one room be an oasis, like have it be
Mm.
clean so I can sit in it and
Mhm.
be okay in that room. Things like being in clothing and not pajamas. I do not have to be in my most successful, amazing outfit, like looking like I walked out of the pages of Vogue. But if I have clothing that wasn't on me when I woke up, that is a good day. That is a good
Mhm.
day.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, and going outside is a big one. Some
Yes.
days I feel like I get stuck inside and I don't leave unless it's school pickup or drop off.
Yeah.
But if I can get outside for a walk or for an errand or something, the other day we went to just the post office, and that was a very exciting day for us because we picked up our mail and delivered a package, and it was very fun for everyone. We don't get out that often, so we were very excited to see everyone. But that's like a must have minimum of getting outside. And some days that means my backyard. It means just
Yeah.
standing outside with her while she's on the playground and like sitting down and soaking in some sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that for me is a huge one, getting outside. If I can, my ideal day would be I would fit in a half an hour walk outside,
Mm.
obviously, because I feel so much better mentally, frankly, and physically too, but mentally, it's such a great boost for me to be able to go out walking. I don't take that for granted. Especially because, some of the walks that I have around me are just so beautiful. I do try and soak in the moment and actually like physically say out loud how thankful I am to be able to do this. I can actually physically go walking and do it in such a gorgeous setting. So yeah, for me, getting outside and walking in particular, if you're able to, that's just huge.
And I love that you said out loud because it might sound crazy, but sometimes
Yeah.
just saying out loud some affirmations, like we've talked about this on the show before,
Yeah.
if you say it enough, you kind of believe it, right?
Hmm.
One of the things I'll say is I'm so lucky I get to be in this space of motherhood and be present. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
so lucky that I have the opportunity to do this and not everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was when I was working, I used to say, I'm so lucky that I have a career that I love and that I get to watch my kids get to watch me enjoy it. Like I used to change my affirmation to whatever I'm at, but like, what's the positive thing in motherhood that you're doing right now? And why can you be grateful? Saying it out loud helps. And grounding yourself in those moments where you're having a harder time by like deep breaths. I was telling you the other day about my trick with my toddler.
Oh, I
um,
love this. You should share it. Yeah, tell
yeah,
us.
and I need it. So when my
I need it.
toddler's losing her shit, which happens pretty
Hmm.
often,
Hmm.
and also Stella. when she's having a hard time, we do something called catch candles. So what I do is I hold my hand up, like I'm holding the number 5 up, and every finger is a candle, like a birthday candle. And I ask them to blow out the candle on the birthday cake. And that makes them go and makes them blow it out. And it has to be a strong breath or it won't blow out the flame. And I find that if we both do 5 big breaths, I can usually calm down. And sometimes when the kids aren't around, I will do that on my own. I just need to catch like some candles real quick.
I love it. Catching candles. Oh my God. Yeah. Our latest mum hack that we're sharing with you here on the Momversation Club.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's
it's helpful.
Christina.
Or blow the bubbles if you didn't want to do candles because, fire and children. But I think if we can just find ways to slow ourselves down, give ourselves grace, and find the things that are must-haves to move forward and feel good each day. And they don't need to be big, big things. They can be like the top 3 things that, this day will be successful if these 3 things happen. And maybe even writing them down so you can check off, like, I showered today, check, like a whiteboard, you just cross it off, like, gold star.
Well, I love it. And those are really good tips. And as simple as it sounds, I love that candle blowing out thing. And seriously, I'm going to start implementing that in my dealings, particularly with my kids.
Really helpful. Because how many times have we heard like take deep grounding breaths, but it's like that gives it like kind of a purpose and it's fun. It's kind of fun. But I would love to hear from you guys. Tell us about your season of motherhood. What are the good things that are in this season? What are some of the not so good things that you're not super enjoying, but that also exist? And maybe share, what are your must-have minimums? Like, what are like the top 3 things that have to happen each day for you to feel okay? Let us know, send us a DM or comment on our social media, or if you're an emailer, you can email momversationclub@gmail.com.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Momversation Club.
And if you've enjoyed today's show, which we hope you have, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach even more moms.
We hope today's episode has helped you to feel more seen and less alone in motherhood. Until next time, bye for now.